Ever catch yourself, like late at night thinking about what happens after all this?
Yeah.
It's a question that's kind of haunted humanity forever, right? And today we're going deep on how 3 different traditions, ancient Egypt, Greece, and the Hindu-Buddhist world, tackled the whole afterlife thing.
And it's wild how these cultures, totally different times and places, all kind of landed on this idea, death, it's not the end, it's like a transition, right? And running that show, that's where our divine VIPs come in. Anubis, Hades, Yama, big names.
Legends, every single one. But here's the thing. They might all be in charge of, well, the departed, but their management styles, let's just say they reflect their cultures big time.
One thing that really jumps out is how, despite all these differences, death isn't seen as like a punishment in these systems. It's just part of the deal.
Just life doing its thing, yeah. Okay, so crash course for anyone who skipped mythology class. Anubis, hailing from ancient Egypt, rocking that jackal head, can't miss him. He's the one making sure souls get to their final judgment, no wrong turns.
Then there's Hades, the Greek king of the underworld. Now, important to remember, he doesn't judge souls himself. He's more like the guy who owns the courthouse where all that goes down.
Got it. And rounding out our lineup, we've got Yama. Both Hindu and Buddhist traditions claim him, which is interesting in itself. And get this, he was supposedly the first mortal to ever die, so talk about experience on the job.
Right. Yama's role is extra fascinating because he's not just the Afterlife CEO, he's also got a hand in reincarnation, which adds, well, another layer of paperwork to the whole thing.
Okay, so we've got our guides, each with their own turf. Here's where things get really interesting. The judgment itself. It's like having 3 totally different courtrooms, each with its own vibe.
Exactly. Anubis. Think immediate, in-your-face judgment. Hades. Much more distant, systematic Yama. He's basically running the ultimate karmic audit, looking at the whole, life resume, not just the highlight reel.
And right there, that tells you so much about how these cultures saw death, what came after, what it all meant.
And that's where it gets juicy, right? It's not just like, okay, death exists. It's about how each culture pictured the afterlife itself, the landscape, the rules, the whole shebang.
Yeah, because we're not talking some cloudy waiting room here, are we? These are like fully realized worlds, right? Each one reflecting what that culture actually valued.
100%. Let's kick things off in Egypt with the Duat. This is Anubis's domain. Picture a place that's, well, it's a trek, full of danger, magic, the works. Not some final destination, but a whole journey the soul has to go on. The goal, reaching the field of reeds.
Field of reeds. Okay, sell me on this. What's so great about reaching the end of Anubis's obstacle course?
Imagine everything awesome about being alive, good land, tons of food, peace, the whole deal. But like cranked up to 11. That's the field of reeds in a nutshell. And get this, the Egyptians were so into this idea of an awesome afterlife, they invented mummification, kept those bodies looking fresh because they believed it wasn't just your soul going on, right? You wanted the whole package deal in the afterlife.
So not just passing Anubis's pop quiz, you got to make sure the ride's in good shape too.
Intense.
Okay, hard left turn here, ancient Greece, Hadesville, the underworld. Definitely a different vibe.
Oh, for sure. Less about the journey, more about finality.
Yeah.
You've got Elysium, basically paradise for heroes and all that. Then there's Tartarus. Let's just say you don't want to end up there.
Yeah.
And reincarnation. Not in the cards. Once you're judged, that's it. No do-overs.
Talk about fate, right? That classic Greek thing. Death is coming, no escaping it. And the underworld just reflects that. It's stark, you know what I mean? But then we've got Yama and the realms of reincarnation, which, talk about a different approach. Break it down for us.
Okay, so buckle up. Yama is all about karma. Both Hindu and Buddhist thought, it's central. But here's the kicker. It's not just judging one life. It's about the whole karmic highlight reel. All your lives.
Multiple lives, consequences, echoing through time. My dude, that's a lot to keep track of. How does Yama even process all that?
That's where Naraka comes in. Now, people compare it to, like, the Western idea of hell, right? But it's not about eternal suffering. Think of it more like karmic rehab. You go there to work off the bad stuff, then boom, rebirth, new life. And Yama, he's the overseer of all this. Not just a judge, but like the ultimate life coach for your soul, making sure you learn something each go around.
So instead of just did you pass, it's what's your soul's GPA looking like?
Oh.
I kind of love it. But okay, let's get down to brass tacks. How did these guys actually judge EGE? What's the process?
Right, the nitty gritty. Well, Anubis, fair and square, he's got the heart weighing ceremony.
Classic. Oh yeah. Your heart, the feather of truth, scales of justice, no pressure.
Picture it. The deceased heart goes on one side of this golden scale, the other side, a feather. This represents Matt, truth, justice, the whole Egyptian ideal. If your heart's light, meaning you lived right, the scales balance and you're good to go. Afterlife, Here you come.
Makes sense. But hypothetically, what if your heart's a little too heavy for that feather?
Well, that's where things get kind of gnarly. See, hanging out under the scales, Amit, part crocodile, part lion, part hippo, all the worst ways to go, rolled into one. Heart's too heavy. Amit swoops in, gobbles it up. Your soul is, well, let's just say it's game over.
Talk about high stakes. So Anubis, very much a you are judged now kind of god. But what about Hades? He's got a whole underworld to run. Does he do one-on-one soul evaluations too?
Hades is, well, he's a fascinating case. Very hands-off, which makes sense given his whole deal. See, he embodies death itself, impersonal, unavoidable. So while he's in charge of the underworld, he doesn't judge souls personally.
Interesting. So it's not like he's up there with a gavel and a Judge Judy robe then?
Nope. He's got 3 judges to handle that. Minos, Rhadamanthys, and Aeacus. They're the ones doling out rewards and punishments based on what you did in life.
So it's like he's set up the system, made sure it's running smoothly, but he's not micromanaging every soul that comes through. Very leave it to the professionals of him, which tracks with that whole Greek fate thing. You die, you get judged. Hades is just making sure the cosmic train runs on time. But Yama, though, he's got to be more hands-on, right? Juggling multiple lifetimes for everyone, that's a personal touch kind of gig.
Oh, absolutely. Anubis has his scales, the Greeks have their system, but Yama, he's got a whole different approach. He's looking at everything. The ups, the downs, the lessons you learn, the ones you didn't, all across your many trips around the wheel of reincarnation. It's not about good or bad as much as it is understanding the karmic balance sheet of your soul and then figuring out what rebirth will get you back on track.
So less about did you make the cut?
Yeah.
More like, okay, what's your soul's learning curve here? Wild. Okay, so we've got these 3 flavors of judgment, each one's super interesting. But here's what gets me. It's not just about the rules, right? It's how each god reveals something way deeper about how their culture dealt with death. The whole shebang.
Totally. It's those little details that make each of these guys so, I don't know, timeless. They're not just placeholders,
For sure. Let's rewind to Anubis for a sec. Guiding souls, judging hearts. But then there's this whole other thing with him. Mummies. That connection to the physical body, that's wild to me.
Huge point. Mummification isn't just some random and nudist side hustle. It tells you the Egyptians weren't messing around. Death wasn't about splitting body and soul. It was like moving to a deluxe apartment in the afterlife, and you needed your stuff, right?
Your soul's got to pass the test, but you also want the ride looking sharp, which kind of makes Anubis more than a judge, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's prepping you for this whole other existence, protecting you in a way.
100%. Body and soul. That was the Egyptian way. Now, flip over to Hades in the underworld. What's striking is how, uninvolved he seems.
It's true. Compared to Anubis with his scales and his embalming fluid, or Yama, who's got karmic spreadsheets for everyone, Hades is almost chilling.
That's the point, though, right? He's fate, that Greek idea that no one escapes death. Hades doesn't judge you. He just, you'll end up in his kingdom, good or bad. It's about the inevitability of it all.
So less about your scorecard, more like acknowledging that everyone eventually is showing up at Hades' doorstep.
Heavy stuff.
Which brings us to Yama, who might just have the toughest job of all. This isn't just one life, one judgment. He's playing 4D chess with reincarnation here.
Right. Consequences echoing through time. It's a whole other level. And what's fascinating is, karma's the name of the game, but it's not about some divine punishment reward system. It's Yama's trying to guide your soul to graduate to the next level of existence.
Okay, so Anubis, instant verdict. Hades, cosmic bouncer, you're in. Yama, he's got your soul's 5-year plan, the whole 9 yards.
And that's what makes these deep dives so awesome. We're not just talking myths here. These are windows into how people really made sense of life, death, the whole mystery.
100%. We've got Egyptians wanting it all, Greeks accepting the inevitable, and Yama, who's basically running soul school over there. Wild stuff. Right?
And hey, maybe it even gets you thinking. Which afterlife would you choose? Anubis's scales, Hades' courtroom, Yama's karmic resume review kind of says a lot about you when you think about it.
There's a thought to leave you with. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep pondering those big questions.